You called me a burden after I sold my mother's locket to fund your dreams? That was the moment I realized I wasn't your mother anymore. I was your target. I gave up art school, worked double shifts, and even missed my daughter's 16th birthday so my kids could have everything. And yet, on my 60th birthday, in front of our neighbors, my own son laughed and called me the family ATM. I stayed silent for 35 years, until I found the forged bank statements. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, or like love came with a price tag, this story is for you. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how I uncovered $50,000 worth of betrayal, stood up for myself, and rebuilt a family around truth, not guilt. It started with a page from my granddaughter's diary, then a whispered warning from my best friend, and finally, a note in my son's jacket that read, "Hide the transfers." That single sentence changed everything. Don't wait until your silence costs you everything. Your voice, just like mine, might be the very thing that sets you free. Before I share what happened, I'd love to know a little bit about you. Are you more of a morning person or a night owl? Leave 1 in the comments if you're up early, or 2 if you stay up late, 3 if you do both. I'll be reading and sending a little surprise reply to a few of you. Now come with me as we begin this story together. My children's laughter once warmed me. Now it masks their demands. I stood at the grill, flipping burgers, the sizzle blending with the hum of jazz from the portable speaker. It was June 15th, 2024, my 60th birthday, and our suburban backyard buzzed with life. Red, white, blue streamers fluttered above, catching the breeze, while the scent of apple pie cooling on the picnic table tugged at memories of simpler days. Neighbors and family milled about, their chatter a soft backdrop. I wore my favorite blue dress, hoping it hid the weight of years spent giving everything to my children. I glanced at Ryan, my son, leaning against the oak tree, his phone glowing in his hand. At 35, he had the same sharp jaw as his father, but his eyes held a restless edge. I'd paid for his college, his first car, even his startup that never took off. Claire, my daughter, 32, hovered near the dessert table, her auburn hair catching the sunlight. She'd been distant since I missed her 16th birthday, working overtime to keep us afloat. James, my husband of 37 years, laughed with neighbors by the cooler, his gray hair glinting. He hadn't noticed my quiet strain, too busy playing host. The grill hissed, and I flipped another patty, my mind drifting to the sacrifices. I'd sold my mother's locket to fund Ryan's first business pitch, worked double shifts for Claire's tuition. My art school dreams faded long ago, buried under their needs. A pang twisted my chest, nostalgia for when their giggles filled this yard, not demands. "Mom!" Ryan's voice cut through. He strode over, his sneakers crunching the grass, a smirk playing on his lips. "We need to talk." He glanced at the guests, lowering his voice, but not enough. "My startup's hitting a rough patch. I need 10 grand to keep it going. You've got plenty to spare, Mom." The words stung like a slap. I gripped the spatula, grease popping on my apron. Guests nearby, Mrs. Larson from next door, Cousin Tom, glanced over, their smiles faltering. "Ryan," I said softly, "this isn't the time." "Come on, Mom, it's urgent." His smirk widened, as if my hesitation was a game. "You always come through." My throat tightened. I wanted to snap, to ask when he'd see me as more than a checkbook, but the eyes on us held me back. I forced a smile, nodding. "We'll talk later." Ryan shrugged, sauntering back to his tree, already typing on his phone. The jazz switched to a slower tune, Ella Fitzgerald's voice curling through the air. I turned back to the grill, my hands trembling. Am I their mother, or just their wallet? Claire approached, her plate piled with potato salad. "Mom, the pie looks amazing," she said, her voice tentative. She paused as if weighing her words. "I've been meaning to say, thanks for everything you did for me. College, all of it." Her eyes, so like mine, held a flicker of guilt. I softened, reaching for her hand, but Ryan's laugh cut through from across the yard. "Mom's our ATM, right, Claire?" he called, loud enough for heads to turn. Claire's cheeks flushed, and she looked away, her thanks dissolving. Sophie, Claire's 15-year-old daughter, my granddaughter, stood nearby, clutching a handmade card. Her brown curls bounced as she frowned at Ryan, her knuckles white. "That's not funny, Uncle Ryan," she muttered. But he didn't hear, already back on his phone. Sophie's loyalty, her quiet defense, warmed me, a reminder of why I kept giving. James laughed louder by the cooler, recounting a golf story, oblivious to the tension. I envied his ease, his ability to float through our family's cracks. I set the spatula down, wiping my hands on my apron, the grease smearing like my blurred hopes. Rachel Carter, my best friend since our kids were in diapers, sidled up to the pie table, her silver earrings catching the light. At 58, she had a warmth that hid her own scars. Her son hadn't spoken to her in years. She sliced a wedge of pie, her eyes flicking to Ryan. "He's acting cagey, Laura," she whispered, leaning close. "I saw him checking his bank app like it's a lifeline. You should look at your accounts." I waved her off, my stomach twisting. "He's just stressed, Rachel." But my gaze drifted to the house, to my office window where a locked box sat on my desk, untouched for years. I'd tucked away old bank statements there, never thinking I'd need them. "Grandma!" Sophie's voice jolted me. She held out her card, a watercolor painting of our backyard on the front. "Happy birthday!" Her smile was bright, but as she handed it over, a folded page slipped out, fluttering to the grass. I bent to pick it up, my fingers brushing the paper. It was from her diary, the words scrawled in purple ink. "Uncle Ryan's hiding something big." My heart skipped a beat. I tucked the page into my pocket, forcing a smile for Sophie. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, hugging her. Her arms tightened around me, a silent promise. The jazz swelled, and I gazed at the office window, fireflies flickering in the dusk. Ryan's jab, Rachel's warning, Sophie's diary page. They churned in my mind, planting a seed of doubt. I wasn't just their mother, was I? I was something less, something used. The thought cut deeper than I expected, a quiet hurt settling in my bones. I straightened, the grill's heat fading at my back. I'd check that box tonight. Something told me the truth was waiting, locked away like my dreams. A mother's love shouldn't feel like a debt, yet Ryan's eyes demand payment. The backyard glowed under fairy lights, their soft twinkle weaving through the evening air. Grilled chicken sizzled on platters, its smoky aroma mingling with the laughter of guests. The jazz playlist shifted to a mellow saxophone, wrapping the party in a warm hum. I smoothed my blue dress, still stinging from Ryan's earlier jab about my savings. The apple pie sat half-eaten on the picnic table, red, white, blue streamers swaying above, a reminder of the family I'd poured my heart into. I carried a tray of chicken, my sandals sinking into the grass, my mind heavy. I'd missed Claire's 16th birthday, working late at the diner to cover her braces. That day, her silence cut deeper than any tantrum. Now, at 32, she stood by the lemonade pitcher, her auburn hair catching the light, her eyes avoiding mine. Ryan, 35, lounged near the fence, his phone screen casting a blue glow on his sharp features. James, my husband, chuckled with neighbors by the swing set, his voice carrying over the jazz. Rachel, my best friend, sliced watermelon at the dessert table, her silver earrings glinting. Sophie, my 15-year-old granddaughter, clutched her watercolor card, her curls bouncing as she watched Ryan with a frown. I set the tray down, my hands steady despite the ache in my chest. Ryan's demand for $10,000 echoed, his smirk burning in my memory. Sophie's diary page tucked in my pocket whispered of his secrets. I wanted to trust him, my boy who once drew me crayon hearts, but doubt crept in, cold and sharp. "Mom!" Ryan's voice sliced through the chatter. He strode over, his sneakers scuffing the grass, his tone loud enough to turn heads. "About that loan. I need it, Mom. It's your job to help me out." His words landed like a slap. Guests, Cousin Ellen, the Hendersons, whispering behind their cups. My cheeks burned, the tray wobbling in my grip. "Ryan, please." I murmured, glancing at the crowd. Not here. It's urgent, he pressed, his eyes glinting with confidence, as if my refusal was impossible. You've always bailed me out. The jazz dipped, the saxophone's wail mirroring my hurt. I swallowed, forcing a nod. We'll discuss it privately. My voice cracked, betraying me. Ryan shrugged, sauntering back to the fence, already typing on his phone. The whispers grew, pitying glances prickling my skin. When did my love become a transaction? Sophie tugged my sleeve, her brown eyes wide. He's not fair, Grandma, she whispered, her voice fierce. I squeezed her hand, her warmth a lifeline. Claire stood nearby, clutching a napkin, her lips parted as if to speak. She nodded at Sophie's words, but her silence stung, a reminder of that missed birthday, her teenage resentment lingering. I longed to bridge the gap, but Ryan's shadow loomed too large. James's laughter rang out, his golf story drawing chuckles from his group. I envied his oblivion, his ability to glide past our family's fractures. I set the tray on the table, my fingers brushing the pie's crust, its sweetness mocking my bitterness. Rachel caught my eye, her knife pausing mid-slice. She stepped closer, her voice low, urgent. He's hiding something, Laura. I saw him glued to his bank app. Check your accounts. I shook my head, my stomach twisting. He's just stressed, I said, but the words felt hollow. Sophie's diary page crinkled in my pocket, its purple ink searing my thoughts. Rachel's gaze held mine, her own pain, her estranged son, lending weight to her warning. I glanced at Ryan, now by the fence, his back to the party, phone pressed to his ear. I edged closer, pretending to adjust a streamer, the fairy lights brushing my arm. Ryan's voice drifted, low but clear. She won't notice a few grand, he muttered, his tone casual like he was ordering coffee. If someone you love talked about you like that, what would you have done? If your chest tightened reading that line, drop a 5 in the comments so I know I'm not alone in this moment. My hands trembled, the streamer slipping from my fingers. My son, my boy, spoke of me like a mark. The jazz swelled, but it couldn't drown the pounding in my ears. I stepped back, my sandals catching on the grass, my breath shallow. Claire watched me, her napkin crumpled, her eyes flickering with guilt. Sophie gripped her card, her frown deepening. Rachel nodded subtly, as if saying, "You see it now." James laughed again, oblivious, the swing set creaking under Kid's weight. I slipped toward the house, the jazz fading behind me, the fairy lights blurring through unshed tears. My gaze fixed on the office door where that locked box waited. Ryan's words, "She won't notice," looped in my mind, each syllable a cut. I'd given him everything, college, cars, chances, and he saw me as a fool. The hurt deepened, a quiet wound spreading. I paused at the door, the cool knob under my palm. Sophie's diary page, Rachel's warning, Ryan's call. They weren't just doubts now, they were warnings. I had to know the truth, even if it broke me. My hands shook, but I straightened, the office's shadow beckoning. Ryan's voice was my joy. Now it's my shame. The kitchen was dim, moonlight spilling through the windows, casting shadows on the counter. Dishes clinked as I stacked them, the coffee maker gurgling its last drops. The backyard party had wound down, leaving a quiet that pressed against my ears. The jazz playlist was gone, replaced by the hum of the fridge. I scrubbed a plate, my blue dress splotched with grease, my heart still raw from Ryan's words at the party. His muttered phone call, "She won't notice a few grand," looped in my mind, each syllable a betrayal. I paused, my hands in soapy water, remembering the day I sold my art supplies to fund Ryan's first startup pitch. The shop clerk's pitying look burned in my memory, but Ryan's grin when I handed him the check had made it worth it. Or so I thought. Now, at 35, he saw me as a bank, not a mother. Claire, 32, lingered by the sink, her auburn hair tucked behind her ear, her silence heavy. Sophie, 15, my granddaughter, sat at the table, her watercolor card open, her brown eyes flashing with anger. Ryan leaned against the doorway, his phone pocketed, his jaw tight. I set the plate down, the clink sharp in the quiet. My hurt churned, a storm brewing inside. I turned to Ryan, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "Why do you treat me like a bank, Ryan? All I've done is give." He scoffed, crossing his arms, his sneakers scuffing the linoleum. "Don't start, Mom. I'm under pressure, okay? My startup's tanking." His tone was sharp, but his eyes flicked to Claire and Sophie, aware of their gaze. "That's no excuse," I said, stepping closer. "I sold my mother's locket, worked double shifts, for you, for both of you." My voice cracked, the weight of years spilling out. Claire's fingers tightened on a dish towel, her eyes wet. Ryan's laugh was cold, slicing through the kitchen. "Your sacrifices were just guilt money, Mom. You think throwing cash at us makes you a saint?" His words echoed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear if the windows were open. Sophie gasped, her chair scraping back. Claire's face paled, her napkin crumpling in her fist. "That's a lie," Sophie shouted, her curls bouncing, her voice fierce for a 15-year-old. "Grandma loves us." She glared at Ryan, her hands balled into fists. My heart swelled at her defiance, a spark of love in the darkness. Ryan rolled his eyes, unfazed. "Stay out of it, kid." He turned to me, his smirk returning. "You've got plenty left, Mom. Just help me out, like always." The coffee maker hissed, steam curling up. My hurt ignited into anger, a fire I hadn't felt in years. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white. "I'm not your ATM, Ryan," I said, my voice low, steady. "Not anymore." He snorted, turning to leave, but Claire's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Her touch was tentative, her eyes brimming. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I took you for granted, too. I'm sorry." Her words were soft, but they landed like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I remembered her 16th birthday, my absence at her party, the diner's fluorescent lights blurring my tears. Her silence then had cut deep, but now her grip promised something new. I squeezed her hand, my throat tight. Sophie slid her card toward me, her eyes fierce. "You're the best, Grandma," she said, her voice a quiet vow. Their support, small but real, fanned my anger into resolve. I wasn't invisible, not to them. Ryan muttered something, heading for the trash can to toss a napkin. As he lifted the lid, a crumpled paper caught my eye, a bank statement half hidden under coffee grounds. I moved before I thought, snatching it from the bin, my fingers smearing with grit. I unfolded it, my breath catching. If you found proof that your own child was stealing from you, would you confront them right then? Or wait until you had more? I froze with that paper in my hands, but my mind was already racing. If you've ever had to question whether love still protects you or just blinds you, drop a 6 in the comments. Because what I discovered next changed everything. The numbers glared. $5,000 withdrawn, no explanation, my account bleeding. My hands shook, the paper crinkling. Ryan froze, his smirk gone, his eyes darting to the statement. "That's nothing," he said, too quick, his voice tight. But I saw it. The flicker of guilt, the pressure cracking his pride. Claire peered over my shoulder, her gasp soft. Sophie stood, her chair creaking, her gaze locked on Ryan. The coffee maker sputtered, the kitchen thick with tension. My anger surged, a tide I couldn't hold back. Ryan's call, Sophie's diary, now this. They weren't coincidences. He was stealing from me. My own son. Did I raise them, or did they erase me? The question burned, raw and real. I folded the statement, my fingers steady now, my resolve hardening. I'd find the truth, no matter the cost. I turned to the office door, my coffee mug clinking as I set it down. Ryan watched, his jaw tight, but he didn't follow. Claire's hand lingered on my arm. Sophie's eyes followed me, fierce and loyal. The moonlight faded as I stepped into the hall, my heart pounding, the office's shadow waiting. I gripped the statement, the numbers blurring in my vision. Whatever Ryan was hiding, it was bigger than I feared. I'd unlock that box tonight and face whatever truth it held. A mother trusts blindly. I'm learning to see. I sat in my home office. The bank statement from the kitchen trash crumpled in my fist. Moonlight filtered through the blinds, but the laptop's glow cast harsh shadows across scattered papers. Outside, the suburban street hummed with farmers' market chatter, vendors packing up their stalls. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, its bitter scent mixing with the faint tang of ink. My blue dress hung loose now, the party's energy a distant memory. Ryan's cruel words, "Your sacrifices were just guilt money," still rang, fueling a fire in my chest. I set the statement down, its $5,000 withdrawal glaring up at me. My fingers hovered over the laptop keys, trembling with anger. I'd given up art school for James's career, sketching dreams in notebooks while he built his firm. That sacrifice, like so many, felt stolen now. Ryan, my son, 35, had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. Claire, 32, my daughter, had gripped my hand last night, her guilt a quiet promise. Rachel, my best friend, 58, had warned me about Ryan's secrets. James, 62, my husband, was probably in the den, lost in his newspaper, blind to the storm brewing. I sipped the cold coffee, grimacing, and opened my email. A new message blinked from Ryan's business partner, a name I barely knew. "Confirm the transfer?" It read, time-stamped yesterday. My pulse quickened, a thud against my ribs. Transfer? What transfer? The statement's numbers flashed in my mind, Ryan's voice on that call. "She won't notice a few grand," tightening the knot in my stomach. The office door creaked, and Rachel stepped in, her silver earrings catching the laptop's light. Her face, lined with years of laughter and loss, softened as she saw me. "Laura, you look like you're fighting a ghost," she said, setting a farmer's market peach on my desk. Her voice carried the weight of her own pain, her son's silence after she chose work over him years ago. "It's Ryan," I said, turning the laptop toward her. "This email, it's not right." My voice shook, anger bubbling up. Rachel leaned in, her eyes narrowing at the screen. "Dig deeper, Laura," she urged, her tone insistent. "He's not honest. I saw him checking his bank app like a hawk at the party." Before I could reply, James poked his head in, his glasses perched on his nose. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice casual as if we were discussing dinner. I held up the statement, my hand steady now. "Ryan's been taking money, James. Thousands." His brow furrowed, but he waved it off. "He's just stressed, Laura. His startup's struggling." He retreated, the den's newspaper rustling, his dismissal a fresh cut. Rachel shook her head, her lips tight. "He's wrong, Laura. Trust your gut." Her words, rooted in her own regrets, lit a spark in me. I wasn't imagining this. Ryan's deceit was real, and I'd find proof. Claire slipped into the office, her auburn hair loose, her hands twisting a dish towel. Her eyes, so like mine, held a storm of guilt. "Mom," she said softly, stepping closer, "I've been thinking about everything. You worked so hard, missing my 16th birthday for us." Her voice cracked, the memory of that day, her cold shoulder at the diner hanging between us. "I was wrong to hold it against you. I want to help." Her words warmed me, a flicker of hope in my fury. I reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "Thank you, Claire," I whispered. She nodded, glancing at Rachel, her resolve mirroring mine. Sophie's defiance last night, Claire's support now, they were my anchors, proof I wasn't alone. I turned back to the desk, my gaze catching on the locked box tucked in a drawer. I'd stashed old statements there, forgotten in the rush of raising kids. My fingers brushed the wood, a letters corner peeking out, yellowed with age. My heart thudded, the market's chatter fading outside. How much did I give, only to be robbed? I tugged the drawer, but it stuck, the lock stubborn. Rachel handed me a paperclip, her eyes gleaming. "Go on," she said, her voice a challenge. Claire watched, her breath held. I bent the clip, jimmying the lock, my hands steady despite the fire in my veins. The drawer gave way with a soft click, revealing a folded bank letter, its edges crisp. My fingers trembled as I lifted it, the paper cool against my skin. The market's hum vanished, the laptop's glow narrowing to a pinpoint. Ryan's email, the statement, this letter, they were pieces of a truth I'd been too blind to see. My anger sharpened, a blade honed by betrayal. I'd uncover his secrets, no matter the cost. I unfolded the letter, my breath catching. Whatever it held, it would change everything. I glanced at Claire, her eyes wide, at Rachel, her nod firm. The office felt smaller, the shadows deeper, but I was no longer afraid. A letter shouldn't shatter love. This one might. My desk lamp flickered, casting shadows across the cluttered office. Crickets chirped outside, a steady hum in the late-night quiet. Papers rustled as I held the bank letter from the locked box, its edges sharp in my trembling hands. The party's chaos, Ryan's cruel words, the bank statement, felt distant now, but the pain lingered. My blue dress hung heavy, stained with betrayal. The laptop hummed, its glow harsh in the dim room. I unfolded the letter, my breath catching. The bank's logo loomed, listing withdrawals. $50,000 over 5 years, taken from my savings with forged signatures. My hands shook, the paper crinkling. He stole from me, I whispered, the words raw. Ryan, my son, 35, had betrayed me. The $5,000 from the trash was just a hint. His voice on that call. She won't notice a few grand. Cut deeper now, a knife in my heart. The door creaked and Sophie, my 15-year-old granddaughter, slipped in. Her brown curls framed worried eyes as she saw the letter. "Grandma?" she asked, stepping close. Her loyalty warmed me, but her frown showed her struggle. She loved Ryan too. "What's wrong?" I held up the letter, my voice breaking. "Ryan took money, Sophie. A lot." Her gasp was soft, her hand on mine. "I'm with you, Grandma," she said, her voice firm. Her words steadied me, a spark of love in the darkness. Rachel, my best friend, 58, entered, her silver earrings glinting. Her face tightened, her own pain, her estranged son, mirroring mine. "You found it," she said, leaning on the desk. "He can't hide now. Confront him." Her tone was sharp, strategic, urging action. I hesitated, my chest tight. Confronting Ryan could break our family, a fear that gnawed at me. "I need proof," I said, the lamp buzzing. My anger surged, a fury at Ryan's deceit. I pictured him mocking my sacrifices, college tuition, my mother's locket sold for his startup, laughing at my trust. The betrayal felt like a public slap, my worth erased. My hands clenched, outrage burning. Claire, my daughter, 32, knocked softly and stepped in, her auburn hair loose. Her eyes widened at the letter. "Mom?" she asked, voice small. I handed it to her, my hand steady. She read, tears spilling. "I should have seen this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You missed my birthday for us, working so hard." Her guilt, tied to that 16th birthday I missed at the diner, poured out. She gripped my arm, her tears a vow. I pulled her close, her sobs soft against me. Sophie's hand rested on my back, Rachel's nod firm. Their support turned my anger into resolve. I wasn't just a caretaker, dismissed by Ryan's greed. I was their mother, fighting for my worth. Was I ever their mother, or just their caretaker? The question stung, raw and urgent. I glanced at the laptop, its screen glowing with unread emails. Claire's words, my overtime, my sacrifices, sharpened my focus. Ryan had forged my name, stolen my future. I scanned the desk, papers sliding, and opened my email. A bank notification blinked, time-stamped today, promising account details. My heart thudded, the lamp's buzz filling the room. Sophie's voice was soft. "You'll find the truth, Grandma." Claire wiped her eyes, nodding. Rachel crossed her arms, fierce. "Do it, Laura." Their faith steadied me, my anger a blade now. I'd verify this letter, uncover every cent Ryan took. I clicked the email, the screen shifting, my breath catching. The crickets faded, the lamp's flicker narrowing. This email could lock Ryan's betrayal in place or crush my last hope. My fingers tightened on the mouse, ready to face the truth. Truth doesn't heal. It sharpens the blade. I sat in Rachel's living room, bank records heavy in my lap. Coffee shop chatter drifted through the window, clinking mugs blending with soft jazz on the radio. My blue dress, wrinkled from the party, clung to me, a reminder of Ryan's betrayal. The bank email from last night confirming his forged signatures burned in my mind, each word a wound. I'd visited the bank that morning, the teller's glance searing as she handed me proof. $50,000 stolen over 5 years, my signature faked by Ryan. He planned this, I'd said, gripping the papers. At 60, I'd given my son, 35, everything, college, startups, my mother's locket, and he'd exploited me. Rachel, 58, poured coffee, her silver earrings glinting. Her face, etched with loss from her estranged son, held fierce resolve. "You've got proof, Laura," she said, setting a mug down. Her voice was strategic, urging action. Claire, my daughter, 32, sat close, her auburn hair tucked back, eyes blazing with guilt. Her vow to stand by me, born of remorse over my missed 16th birthday, fueled her strength. James, my husband, 62, was at home, likely in his den, unaware of my pain. I slid the records across the table, my fingers brushing the mug. "Ryan forged my name," I said, anger hardening into resolve. The jazz wailed, echoing my betrayal. Rachel scanned the pages, her jaw tight. "I heard him at the party," she said, her voice low, boasting about easy money. "Sophie recorded it." She tapped her phone, my pulse racing. Ryan's arrogance, dismissing my sacrifices, felt like another slap, sparking outrage. Claire gripped my hand. "We'll stop him, Mom," she said, steady. Her commitment strengthened me. I nodded, the records grounding my resolve. I'd confront Ryan, whatever the cost. James's footsteps sounded, his glasses fogged from the heat. "Laura, you okay?" he asked, brow furrowed. His new curiosity stirred hope. I showed the records. "Ryan stole from me, James." He hesitated, concern clashing with years of denial. "Talk later," he said, retreating, the door clicking. Rachel's mug clinked. "He'll see the truth," she said, her own regrets, missing her son's calls, sharpening her tone. Confront Ryan at the party's final night. Her estrangement bonded us, a shared fight against betrayal. Claire's eyes glistened. "I should have seen his lies," she said, voice breaking. I thought of her 16th birthday, my absence at her party, the diner's hum drowning my guilt. Her support now mended that wound. Sophie's recording, Rachel's resolve, Claire's vow. They were my strength, proof I wasn't alone. I sipped coffee, its warmth steadying me. Can a mother's love survive a thief? The question cut deep. I'd loved Ryan fiercely, but his greed had broken us. My resolve grew, a blade honed by truth. I'd face him at the community center, a stand for my worth. Rachel played the recording, Sophie's voice faint. Ryan's laugh crackled, cold. "Mom's money's mine," he said, each word a dagger. My hands tightened on the mug, jazz fading. Claire gasped, her grip fierce. Rachel's eyes blazed, nodding. The coffee shop chatter vanished, Ryan's voice filling the room. My heart pounded, the records heavy. His boast was his truth, laid bare. I'd verify every detail, build an ironclad case. The party's final night would be his reckoning, my chance to reclaim my trust, my love, myself. I stood, clutching the phone, the recording echoing. Claire rose, her hand on my arm. Rachel's gaze followed, fierce. I stepped to the door, eyes on the road home, summer air warm on my skin. The truth was mine, a blade I'd wield. Ryan's words would haunt him soon. I gave Ryan my heart. He broke my mother's locket. Crumpled streamers littered the living room floor, relics of my 60th birthday party. A jazz record spun softly, its notes jarring against the suburban quiet. Sophie's recording, Ryan boasting, "Mom's money's mine," fueled my fury. At 60, I stood by the coffee table, my blue dress creased, anger burning over Ryan's theft of $50,000, proven by bank records. Ryan, 35, slouched in the armchair, his eyes defiant. Claire, 32, my daughter, stood near, her auburn hair loose, her loyalty fierce. Sophie, 15, my granddaughter, hovered by the window, her curls framing a scowl, torn over Ryan. James, my husband, 62, was in the garage, still blind to our unraveling. I played the recording, Ryan's voice crackling. "You stole $50,000, I said, pointing to the records. The jazz skipped, tense. Ryan scoffed. "You hoarded that money, Mom." His pride, his desperation stung like a slap. My anger flared. "I sold my mother's locket for you," I snapped, voice rising. Claire's eyes glistened, Sophie's fists clenched, but Ryan's smirk held, reckless. He stood, grabbing the locket from the mantel, its silver glinting. "You're holding me back!" he shouted, smashing it. Shards scattered. He shoved me, his hands rough. Sophie screamed, "Stop!" Claire shielded me, her arms firm. The locket's ruin, a symbol of my sacrifices, felt like a public betrayal. Ryan's shove sparked outrage, my chest tight with fury. Sophie's scream, Claire's shield turned my anger to resolve. I wasn't his bank. I was his mother, ready to fight. James burst in, glasses fogged. "What's wrong with you, Ryan?" he demanded, seeing the shards, my trembling form. His concern, tied to his regret over my art school sacrifice, shifted him to protector. Ryan backed away, his smirk gone. I knelt, gathering locket pieces, their edges sharp. "I'll expose you at the party's final night," I vowed, voice low. Claire knelt beside me. Sophie's eyes blazed, loyal despite her conflict. James stood close, his awakening clear. Sophie grabbed Ryan's jacket, pulling out a folded note. "Grandma," she whispered, handing it over. I read, "Hide the transfers." My jaw tightened, proof of Ryan's deceit. Claire gasped. James's brow furrowed, tension thick. Did I raise a son or a stranger? The question cut deep. Ryan's cruelty wasn't my boy, not the one who drew crayon hearts. My resolve hardened, a fire for the community center, where I'd lay his betrayal bare. I swept up the shards, jazz fading, my eyes on the party invitation. Ryan watched, silent, his defiance cracked. Claire's hand rested on my shoulder, Sophie's gaze fierce, James's silence heavy. I held the invitation, its red-white-blue border stark. The note, the recording, the records were my weapons now. Ryan's shove, the locket's ruin drew a line. I'd face him at the party, shatter his lies. I stepped toward the door, shards in my pocket, heart pounding, ready for justice. Ryan's cruelty lit a fire. I'll burn his lies to ash. I sat on a wicker chair in Rachel's backyard, the note from Ryan's jacket, "Hide the transfers," crumpled in my hand. String lights twinkled above, casting a soft glow over the grass. Slow dance music drifted from a neighbor's porch, mingling with the clink of coffee mugs on the patio table. The summer air was warm, but my resolve at 60 was hotter, stoked by Ryan's betrayal. His destruction of my mother's locket, his shove, his theft of $50,000. They were wounds I'd turn into weapons. Rachel, 58, leaned against the table, her silver earrings catching the light. Her face, etched with the pain of her estranged son, held a strategic glint. Claire, my daughter, 32, sat beside me, her auburn hair loose, her eyes fierce with loyalty born of guilt over our past distance. Sophie, my granddaughter, 15, perched on a stool, her brown curls bouncing, her admiration for me shining through her eager nod. James, my husband, 62, was on his way, his awakening at the locket's ruin a new thread of hope. I smoothed my blue dress, now faded, and held up the note. "Ryan's hiding more," I said, my voice steady. The jazz from the neighbor's radio dipped, a saxophone's wail echoing my resolve. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Expose him at the community center's closing toast," she said, her tone sharp. "Make it public, Laura." Her own regrets, missing her son's calls, fueled her push, a mirror to my fight. Claire gripped my hand, her voice firm. "He can't hurt you anymore, Mom." Sophie nodded, her pencil scratching a toast plan on a napkin. Their support turned my anger into commanding strength. I'd face Ryan, 35, my son, and lay his deceit bare. The note, Sophie's recording, the bank records, they were proof of his greed, his dismissal of my sacrifices. I wasn't his bank anymore. I was his mother, reclaiming my worth. The gate creaked, and James stepped in, his glasses glinting under the lights. His shoulders, usually slumped from years at his desk, were squared. "Laura," he said, his voice soft, heavy with regret. He sat beside me, his hand brushing mine. "I should have seen your sacrifices. Art school, the locket. I let you carry it all." His eyes, wet, recalled my sketchbooks, abandoned for his career. "I'm with you now," he vowed, his devotion a balm to decades of distance. I squeezed his hand, my throat tight. "Thank you, James." Sophie slid her napkin toward me, a sketch of the toast stage, her eagerness infectious. "You'll be amazing, Grandma," she said, her voice bright. Rachel raised her mug, a celebratory spark in her eyes. "To truth," she toasted, her own hope for reconciliation shining through. The music swelled, a slow waltz, and I felt their strength. Claire's loyalty, James's regret, Sophie's faith, Rachel's strategy, building mine. We planned, voices low, mugs clinking. The community center's final night would be my stand, a public reckoning for Ryan's lies. I'd hold the note, play the recording, show the records, and let his greed unravel before the guests. My resolve solidified, a fire ready to burn his deceit to ash. The next day, at the community center setup, I arranged chairs, the BBQ buffet's aroma filling the air. Red, white, blue banners hung above, a nod to the party's theme, but my focus was razor sharp. Claire adjusted tablecloths, Sophie taped signs, James carried boxes, their presence my armor. Guests milled about, their chatter a hum, unaware of the storm brewing. Ryan's voice cut through, loud and jarring. "Mom!" he barked, striding in, his sneakers scuffing the floor. His eyes, sharp with desperation, locked on me. "You're useless now, Mom!" he shouted, his words echoing off the walls. He shoved me, hard, knocking over a chair with a crash. Guests gasped, forks clattering, their eyes wide. Claire rushed to my side, Sophie's cry sharp, James's face darkening as he stepped forward. The shove, the insult felt like a public flogging, Ryan's cruelty laid bare. My chest burned with outrage, the audience in my mind roaring at his selfishness. But I stood tall, my blue dress steady, my voice a whisper only I heard. Understood. My resolve was iron now, unbreakable. A guest, Mrs. Larson from next door, approached, her phone in hand. "Laura," she whispered, texting me a photo. I glanced at the screen. A blurry shot of Ryan at the bank, withdrawing cash, time-stamped yesterday. My jaw clenched, the photo another nail in his lies. Claire's hand tightened on my arm. Sophie's eyes blazed. James's gaze followed Ryan, who slunk away, his smirk gone. Can truth rebuild what lies destroyed? The question hung, urgent and raw. Ryan's cruelty, his insults, shoves, theft, had shattered our family, but I'd rebuild with those who valued me. The photo, the note, the recording. They were my arsenal, ready for the toast. I pocketed the phone, my resolve hardening. The BBQ's smoke curled upward, the banners fluttering. Claire straightened a chair. Sophie taped another sign. James stood close, his hand on my shoulder. Rachel's plan echoed in my mind. Her celebratory toast, a promise. I'd face Ryan tomorrow, let the truth blaze. I drove to the community center, the radio playing soft jazz, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The night ahead would change everything, my fire ready to burn. My silence ends tonight. My voice will shake the room. The community center buzzed with the final evening of my 60th birthday celebration. BBQ buffet trays steamed, their smoky aroma mingling with the chatter of guests. American flag decorations hung alongside fairy lights, their glow softening the folding chairs and checkered tablecloths. I stood near the stage, my blue dress pressed but heavy with the weight of Ryan's betrayal. The photo from Mrs. Larson, Ryan at the bank withdrawing cash, burned in my pocket, a spark for the fire I'd unleash. At 60, I gripped the microphone, my resolve unyielding. Ryan, 35, slouched by the buffet, his sharp jaw tight, unaware of the storm coming. Claire, my daughter, 32, stood close, her auburn hair catching the light, her loyalty fierce. James, my husband, 62, flanked me, his glasses glinting, his support a steady anchor. Rachel, my best friend, 58, hovered near, her silver earrings flashing, her empathy from her own estranged son fueling her cheer. Sophie, my granddaughter, 15, clutched a napkin, her brown curls bouncing, her admiration vocal. Guests, neighbors, cousins, chatted, plates clattering, oblivious to the drama brewing. I tapped the mic, the hum silencing the room. The jazz playlist paused, fairy lights dimming. "Thank you for celebrating with me," I began, my voice clear. I held up the note from Ryan's jacket, "Hide the transfers," and the bank photo. "But tonight I must share a truth." My heart pounded, but my strength was iron. Ryan, my son, stole $50,000 from me, forging my signature. Guests murmured, forks scraping plates. Ryan's head snapped up, his eyes wide. Claire's hand brushed mine, Sophie's gasp soft, James's jaw set. Rachel's nod was fierce, her eyes gleaming. The room tensed, the BBQ smoke curling like my resolve. Ryan pushed through the crowd, his sneakers scuffing the floor. "That's a lie," he shouted, his voice cracking. He faced me inches away, his desperation erratic. "You're just a burden now, Mom." The words echoed, a public lash, humiliating me before the crowd. Guests gasped, Mrs. Henderson's cup clattering. My chest burned, outrage flaring, the audience in my mind roaring at his cruelty. Claire stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You betrayed her, Ryan," she snapped, her loyalty vocal, her guilt over our past distance fueling her fire. Sophie jumped up, her napkin falling. "You're the burden," she yelled, her defiance fierce, her love for me trumping her conflict over Ryan. James glared, his hand on my shoulder, his love steadfast. "Enough, Ryan," he growled, his support a shield. The fairy lights flickered, the room thick with judgment. Ryan's insult, calling me a burden, cut deeper than his theft, but it steeled me. I wasn't useless. I'd given him college, my mother's locket, my dreams, and he'd spat on them. My resolve peaked, a commanding force ready to end his lies. I raised the note, my voice steady. "You hid transfers, Ryan, stole my savings." I showed the photo, his face clear at the bank. Guests whispered, Cousin Tom shaking his head. Ryan's eyes darted, his smirk gone. "Demand answers," I said, my gaze locked on his. "Why?" He faltered, sweat beading on his brow. "You wasted that money hoarding it," he shouted, his justification desperate, cruel. "I needed it for the startup." The guests' murmurs grew, judgmental, their plates forgotten. His words twisted my sacrifices, my art school dreams, my overtime shifts, into greed, a final insult that ignited my fury. Rachel moved through the crowd, her hand extended. "Laura," she said, her voice triumphant, handing me a USB drive. "A guest recorded this. It'll end it." Her empathy, tied to her own family's fracture, shone through, her cheer a spark for my fire. I took the drive, my fingers steady, the fairy light steadying too. The recording, Sophie's capture of Ryan's boast, the bank records, they were my arsenal, but this drive promised more. I turned to Ryan, my voice ablade. "You can't hide anymore," I said. He froze, his panic raw, his cruelty unraveling. Claire's proud gaze, Sophie's fierce nod, James's protective stance, Rachel's triumphant smile, they were my strength. redefining my family before my eyes. Is family a bond or a debt? The question hung, urgent as Ryan's greed answered it. I walked to the stage's laptop, the USB drive cool in my hand. Guests watched, their chatter gone, plates still. Claire stood by me, Sophie close, James behind, Rachel cheering silently. The fairy lights dimmed, the room hushing, the BBQ smoke fading. I plugged in the drive, the screen blinking, a recording ready to play. My finger hovered over the play button, my breath steady. The recording, Ryan forging my signature, would seal his betrayal, a truth to shake the room. I pressed play, the silence breaking, my voice ready to rise. I gave Ryan everything. Now I take back my life. The community center pulsed with tension, the USB recording, Ryan admitting to forging my signature, still echoing. The fire pit outside crackled, fairy lights glowing softly over cooling BBQ trays. Guests murmured, their plates still, American flags stark above. At 60, I stood on the stage, my blue dress steady, microphone in hand. The recording sealed Ryan's theft of $50,000. And tonight, I'd claim my freedom. Ryan, 35, stood by the buffet, his jaw slack, eyes wild with shame. Claire, 32, my daughter, gripped my arm, her auburn hair glinting, pride fierce. James, 62, my husband, flanked me, his devotion firm. Rachel, 58, my friend, leaned forward, her empathy triumphant. Sophie, 15, my granddaughter, stood tall, her admiration vocal. Guests were stunned, some supportive, others judgmental, whispers sharp. I raised the mic, voice commanding. "You stole my trust, Ryan," I said, the truth ablade. Guests gasped, forks clinking. My liberation surged, washing away years of being undervalued. I'd given Ryan college, my mother's locket, my dreams, and he'd betrayed me. Ryan lunged forward, shouting, "You're ruining my life, Mom!" His desperate guilt stung, echoing his, "You're a burden." My resolve held, rejecting his manipulation, sparking audience satisfaction. James stepped in, voice low. "You did that yourself." Claire snapped, "You betrayed us." Sophie yelled, "Leave Grandma alone." Guests turned away, Cousin Ellen frowning. Ryan's outburst crumbled under their unity. My liberation blazed, a fire no guilt could dim. I wasn't his bank. I was Laura, reclaiming my agency. Claire whispered, "More proof." She showed an email from the USB, Ryan's plan to hide the theft. My jaw clenched, the micro twist tightening his noose. Sophie's eyes widened. Rachel nodded, James's grip firm. The email recording, note. My truth was ironclad. I led the crowd outside to the fire pit, flames dancing. Claire, James, Sophie, Rachel followed, guests trailing. I held the bank letter, its edges curling, a symbol of Ryan's deceit. "You stole my future?" I told Ryan, his shame raw. "No more?" I tossed the letter into the fire, flames devouring it, ash rising. "I'm no one's bank," I said, cutting his support. Guests gasped, Mrs. Larson clapping. Ryan stormed off, his steps fading. The letters burning, my words, freed me, redefining my role. Claire's smile, Sophie's gaze, James's nod, Rachel's cheer. They were my family, rebuilt. Did I lose a son or find myself? The question softened my triumph. Ryan's greed cost him my love, but I found my strength. Claire slipped me a photo from the locket. Baby Ryan in my arms, his tiny hand on mine. My throat tightened, loss piercing my freedom. Sophie leaned close. "You're still you, Grandma." James's arms circled me. Rachel's eyes glistened, guests' murmurs fading. I clutched the photo, embers fading, and walked inside, fairy lights guiding me. Ryan was gone, but I was whole, my freedom a flame eternal. Blood doesn't make family, loyalty does. My backyard glowed with fairy lights, weeks after exposing Ryan's betrayal. Grilled chicken sizzled, its smoky scent mingling with soft jazz from a speaker. The summer evening held us close, an intimate gathering of my true family. At 60, my blue dress felt light, my liberation serene. The locket photo of baby Ryan, his tiny hand in mine, stirring bittersweet memories. Claire, my daughter, 32, set plates, her auburn hair shining, her gratitude joyful. James, my husband, 62, tended the grill, his devotion a new anchor. Rachel, my friend, 58, sipped lemonade, her warmth tied to our shared struggles. Sophie, my granddaughter, 15, arranged napkins, her hope bright. Ryan's absence, his "you're a burden" insult, faded, a resolved wound, the audience in my mind relieved. I served chicken, raising a glass. I donated $10,000 to a women's shelter, I said, my voice clear. The symbolic act of agency drew cheers. Claire smiled, showing the locket photo. "You were always enough, Mom," she said, her loyalty sealing our bond. I held the photo, Ryan's baby face a pang, but my strength held. The jazz shifted, Ella's voice soft. James set down tongs, his hand on mine. "I let you carry too much," he said, recalling my art school sacrifice. "Never again." His regret from prioritizing his career fueled his vow. I squeezed his hand, our marriage redefined. Sophie approached, offering a beaded bracelet. "You're my hero, Grandma," she said, her love warming me. I hugged her, the bracelet a symbol of our bond. Rachel raised her glass. "To Laura," she toasted, "you gave me courage to call my son." Her hope, tied to her estrangement, echoed my journey. We clinked glasses, laughter rising. Claire hummed, Sophie twirled under the lights, their joy infectious. Sophie darted inside, returning with a sketch I'd drawn of baby Ryan, found in a drawer. His chubby cheeks, my pencil lines, stirred memories, a micro twist, softening my heart. My liberation held, the sketch a relic of love given, not lost. The donation, the gathering, solidified my new family, a climax of freedom. James's devotion, Claire's gratitude, Sophie's hope, Rachel's warmth redefined family. Can love heal what betrayal broke? The question answered itself in their laughter. Ryan's greed scarred us, but loyal love mended me. I sipped lemonade, the bracelet cool, the sketch in hand. James stoked the grill. Sophie spun. Rachel shared her son's call, hopeful. The backyard, once Ryan's stage, was now my haven. Clearing plates, I saw an envelope inside, Ryan's apology letter, unopened. I picked it up, his handwriting heavy, but set it aside, choosing the family outside. The jazz swelled, pulling me back. I joined Claire's laughter, Sophie's twirl, James's grin, Rachel's toast. My liberation was serene, a strength forged in truth, my heart home. I was their caretaker once. Now, I'm my own light. The community center buzzed with a volunteer event, coffee brewing in the corner, its rich aroma mingling with kids' laughter. Months had passed since I exposed Ryan's betrayal, and at 60, I stood tall, my blue dress swapped for a sweater, my contentment enduring. Ryan's apology letter, unopened on my desk, tested my resolve. But I was thriving, my self-respect a steady flame. Claire, my daughter, 32, chatted nearby, her auburn hair catching the light, her pride in me joyful. Sophie, my granddaughter, 15, handed out flyers, her brown curls bouncing, her confidence inspired by me. James, my husband, 62, carried chairs, his love a fulfilled partnership. Rachel, my friend, 58, poured coffee, her warmth tied to our shared struggles, her hope for her own family glowing. Ryan's letter, carrying his cruel, "You're useless," was a faint echo, my rejection of it a triumph, the audience in my mind cheering. I mentored young mothers, my voice steady. "You're enough," I told a woman cradling her baby, her eyes mirroring my past doubts. Claire and Sophie approached, Claire's smile wide. "You're changing lives, Mom," she said, Sophie nodding. "You're the best, Grandma." Their praise, rooted in our bonds, warmed me, maternal love a steady thread. James joined us, his glasses glinting. "We're planning a trip, Laura," he said, his hand brushing mine. "Starting fresh." His love, forged through regret over my art school sacrifice, anchored us. Rachel poured coffee, her voice soft. "I called my son," she said, her eyes bright. "You inspired me to try." Her hope tied to her estrangement mirrored my strength, a spark of reconciliation. The kids' laughter swelled, coffee mugs clinking. Rachel leaned close, her voice low. "I saw Ryan at the coffee shop," she said. "He looked lost." The micro twist, his aimless state stirred a pang, but my liberation held, his regret no longer my burden. I stepped to my office, the letter waiting. I opened it, Ryan's words scrawled, regret, but no change, his greed unchanged. "I choose me," I said, setting it aside, my voice firm. The choice, rejecting his cruelty, completed my liberation, a climax of self-respect. Claire's pride, Sophie's inspiration, James's love, Rachel's loyalty, they were my family, chosen and true. Did I raise them, or did they teach me to stand? The question answered itself in their faces. Ryan's betrayal had scarred me, but Claire, Sophie, James, Rachel, they'd shown me my strength. I smiled, coffee mug warm in my hands, the center's bustle a new beginning. The kids' laughter swelled, sealing my journey. I beamed, my heart whole, my light my own. As I stood in the community center, coffee mug warm in my hands, surrounded by Claire's laughter and Sophie's confident smile, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. My journey through Ryan's betrayal, his theft, his cruel words calling me a burden, taught me that family isn't just blood. It's the loyalty of those who see your heart. In life, love can heal when we choose to stand tall, not for others, but for ourselves, like I did by burning his letter and choosing my own path. Our bonds, like backyard gatherings with apple pie, grow stronger through honesty and forgiveness, even when it means letting go. Claire, James, Sophie, and Rachel showed me that compassion rebuilds what greed tears apart. If this story stirred memories of your own family, please share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your voice. Your stories remind us we're never alone in finding our light.